for spine-chilling Newtown horrors. Sinister secrets revealed, cursed destinies exposed. Every Friday night at the Brookhaven diner, the clamor of plates clinking and cutlery scraping filled the air. But tonight, something felt different. Sarah, a resilient single mother, served coffee to her usual patrons, a knot tightening in her stomach as unexpected whispers slithered through the half-lit booths. Families mysteriously disappearing, eerie legends about the missing children resurfacing from her childhood. Tales her own parents had warned her to forget. The once comforting diner morphed into a cage of hushed voices, their fear palpable, prickling her skin. As she poured steaming coffee, the conversation around her turned urgent, reverberating. "Did you hear? The Andersons vanished without a trace. And they say it's connected to the old folktale, the one about the shadows." Sarah's heart raced, a cold fist clenching her chest. This was Brookhaven, a sanctuary of barbecues and playdates. But now, shadows loomed closer, whispering doubts that clawed at the edges of her mind. Every day became a struggle, not simply against time but against something much more sinister lurking beneath the surface. She'd recently begun to find some normalcy after losing her husband managing morning routines for her two children, Emma and Jake, who brought life and laughter into her world. Blinded by familiar streets and friendly nods, she felt foolish as a creeping dread coursed through her veins. It wasn't just her imagination. There was a pernicious undercurrent threading through Brookhaven. The schoolyard chatter took on an ominous tone. One evening, dropping Emma off, Sarah caught a stranger's eye. A chill ran through her. The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. Shadows danced beyond the playground, as if waiting. A surge of instinct told her to protect her kids. But how do you shield laughter from lurking fears? Days bled into each other, each grocery run now dripping with apprehension, as she began spotting patterns, the same strangers circling, watching, eyes like predators sizing up their prey. Familiar streets turned into a labyrinth of dread, the ground beneath her shifting. And then, during a casual chat with the other mothers, the air thickened with a hungry tension. Names fell from their lips like shattered glass, accusations of connections to the missing. "I need to interrupt for a second," Sarah thought, her fear simmering, driving her deeper into investigation. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." With a sense of urgency, she began linking these sinister dots, piecing together a story that was both local lore and haunting reality. The whispered legends danced at the edge of her sanity. They spoke of a spirit lurking amongst the living, a phantom seeking vengeance against those who prey upon innocence. Panic flooded her as she realized her children were dancing along the edges of this dark tale, blissfully unaware of the very real danger prowling their neighborhood. On a night like any other, moonlight flooded her living room as Sarah scrolled through her phone, desperate for a thread of solace. But instead, her screen was suddenly lit with an old article detailing every vanished family, and the last name struck her hard. The connection to her own home ran deep, through soil and stone, echoing across generations. Heart racing, she felt the air grow heavy. Something awakened. Right then, she knew she had awakened something even darker in Brookhaven. Slumbering ghosts seeking retribution. Could she face a monster born from both man and myth? As she stood frozen in the shadows of her own home, a shiver ran down her spine when a soft laugh echoed down the hall. In the blink of an eye, her children's laughter transformed into a chilling cry that resonated in her soul, pulling her deeper into the dark abyss. The familiar warmth of her home twisted into an entity of terror, exposing the very fabric of betrayal. Who, or what, lingered behind her front door as the sins of her neighbors loomed larger than she could ever imagine? The breath caught in Sarah's throat as she strained to hear through the darkness. Her heart pounded like a drum, loud enough to drown out the sounds of the night, a cacophony of silence pressing down on her, thick and heavy. She could feel the chill creeping into her bones, an icy grip that paralyzed her as shadows flickered at the corners of her vision. "Emma? Jake?" she called, voice hoarse and trembling. The house offered no reply, only the echo of her own fear bouncing back. She stepped cautiously toward the hallway from which the haunting laughter had erupted, her instincts screaming for her to turn back. But she couldn't. Not when her children were inside, somewhere lost between safety and the sinister pull of the shadows. Each step felt more like a mile, the air thickening with dread. The familiar pictures that adorned the walls, the smiles of family vacations, birthday parties, now seemed twisted, faces morphing into unsettling grins. There was something wrong with her home, something hidden in its very foundation. Sarah clenched her fists, pushing the unsettling thoughts aside. She had to find them. The darkened rooms were only lit by the pale moonlight seeping through the windows. Sarah moved closer to the children's room, the door slightly ajar. An urge to burst inside fueled her resolve, but fear tugged at the edges of her consciousness. What awaited her on the other side? Suddenly, an icy gust swept through the hall, slamming the door shut in front of her. Heart racing wildly, she tried the knob. Locked. Panic surged as she rattled the handle, desperation seeping into her frantic breaths. Echoes of laughter twisted into screams within her mind, reverberating, blending reality with nightmare. "Emma! Jake!" she screamed, each cry more frantic than the last. "Please!" A soft thud resonated from behind the door, followed by that same eerie laughter, like a taunt twisting the very fabric of her sanity. The sound sent her teetering on the verge of madness. There was only one way through. She had to push past the fear gripping her. Gathering every ounce of courage, she stepped back and kicked the door with force, the wood splintering under her foot. It swung open, revealing a room cloaked in darkness. As she ventured inside, the children's beds were empty, the sheets tangled like the fear warping her thoughts. Scanning the shadows, her heartbeat pounded in her ears. Thump, thump. "Mommy, we're here." A voice came from beneath the bed, light and innocent, but there was an undertone of something more sinister lurking within it. "Come out, right now," she demanded, afraid of what she might find. The shadows stirred. The soft, familiar face of her daughter peeked out, but as Sarah reached for her, the expression twisted. "But Mommy." "We're playing against the wall." Something stirred, dark eyes glinting in the faint light, watching, waiting. A silhouette materialized behind her children, an amorphous figure gliding forward, whispering names, each name a victim, a lost soul. "What are you doing here?" Throat dry, Sarah challenged the figure as dread pooled in her stomach. "It brings you to us, implants shadows into the innocent." It hissed, voice as smooth as oil but laced with malice. The children moved closer to the figure, entranced. "Mommy, we want to stay and play." The darkness loomed larger, a monster living off her worst fears. In that instant, clarity surged through her, a primal instinct to protect rising fiercely. "No, get away from them." She lunged forward, reaching for her children, but the figure shifted. In a heartbeat, she was trapped in a nightmare, the shadows tightening around her. How could she fight a creature born from fear, from a town's buried secrets? As her hand brushed against her kids, a pair of icy fingers clasped around her wrist, anchoring her in place. The air crackled, terror igniting her senses. She could either sink into despair or face this darkness head-on. But even as she gripped her children tightly, she could already feel them slipping away. The fabric of reality trembled, and in the fading light, she whispered a promise, determined to uncover the truth of Brookhaven. Not just to save her children, but to confront the darkness once and for all. But that darkness had plans of its own, schemes etched deeply in the town's history, lurking in every shadow. Would Sarah be ready for the haunting reveal she was about to unlock? The very walls whispered secrets, daring her to uncover them. Would she succeed in her desperate fight against what was bred from this town's silence, or would she become the next victim lost to its curse? The pressure around Sarah's wrist tightened like a vice, sending jolts of panic racing through her. The icy grip held her fast, a promise of despair that tingled against her skin. All around her, shadows twisted and coiled, a living entity feeding on her fear. She could barely breathe. "Emma! Jake!" Her voice sliced through the stifling silence, filled with desperate urgency. A voice deeper than the void echoed back, its monstrous undertone weaving through her soul. "They are ours now, no." Sarah shrieked, invoking every ounce of fury and love. "You can't have them." A sensation like a tidal wave washed over her, the shadows pulsating as if alive, morphing into some grotesque semblance of life. She was losing hold, the world around her flickering like an old film reel, images distorting into unimaginable horrors. Her children's faces twisted now, caught between innocence and the clutches of darkness. "Mommy, join us." Emma's voice rang out sweetly, but it was laced with an unsettling echo, an uncanny rhythm. It felt wrong, like the laughter of a bell only heard in nightmares. Sarah turned, frantic. "Don't listen to it." She lunged, just as the figure swirled, revealing a maw that gaped wide, more shadow than substance. Somewhere deep within, flickered glimpses of souls trapped, those who had vanished before, their eyes wide with terror. They were calling out, silenced forever. "Help us," they pleaded, a chorus of broken dreams cascading into her. "Save us." They had all once belonged, family, friends, neighbors, all now swallowed by this darkness that ruled Brookhaven. Her breath quickened, knowing there was no escape, and her muscles tensed. Something sinister sought to claim her as well. "Mommy!" Jake screamed, the raw despair in his voice grounding her as she fought against the icy embrace. For a moment, the world cracked open, and she saw clarity, a shimmering light that flickered like a candle in the storm of despair. "Hold my hand," she shouted, reaching through the shadows, feeling for her children's warmth. Suddenly, warmth ignited where she touched them. With a roar of defiance, Sarah forced her way closer, sinking her nails into the wooden floor, feeling its strength. "We will fight. We're not yours." The shadows recoiled as if stung. For a fraction of a second, the figure stumbled back, the darkness writhing and twisting, unsure under the force of her will. "Here, now." As Sarah gripped her children tightly, a blinding flash sparked within her. She could almost see the history of Brookhaven, its murky past, the rituals cast long before she entered this world. Evil fed on silence. Evil thrived in shadows. But they had the power to weaken it, the memory of love binding them together against the dark. "Mommy, what do we do?" Emma asked, her innocent face looking up at her, caught between the light of hope and the edge of shadows. "We fight," Sarah cried, drawing strength from the surge of energy illuminating their small space, every beat of their hearts sinking, growing stronger with purpose. They could resist, they could overcome. But the darkness howled, rage bristling through the air like static before a storm. "You cannot escape what was chosen long ago. Your fates are intertwined with despair." With a thrust of will, she flung uncertainty from her mind, pushing forward into the core of the shadowy mass. But as the darkness thinned, a chilling laugh erupted, reverberating through the very foundation of the house. A voice she recognized, a soft whisper from the grave, entwined with a familiar laughter. "You shouldn't have come back." Sarah, the realization slashed through her. She wasn't just battling for her children's lives. She was unlocking the very heart of the darkness that had haunted her family for generations. Every choice echoed, every mistake. "What are you?" she demanded, old fears threatening to resurface. "Your legacy," it breathed, the shadows swirling tighter, now revealing an abyss of faces. Their expressions varied from mockery to sorrow. The connection tightened, the cold wrapping around her like a web. Whatever this was, it was drawing from her, pulling her into the very fabric of their curse. In that moment, Sarah's resolve cracked. The shadows tightened their grip, understanding the shift in her mindset. "It's your turn to choose," and as light flickered just beyond her grasp, chaos erupted. Would she claim her family's legacy or be lost in the very darkness birthed from it? Shadows writhed, threatening the fragile thread right before her eyes. The room began to spin, each heartbeat thundering, drowning in an abyss of dread. What lay behind the veil of darkness? What monstrous truths awaited discovery? The whispers grew louder, drawing her closer as she prepared to step deeper into a legacy intertwined with fate and fear. The walls vibrated with the cacophony of Sarah's heart racing, drowning her very thoughts. Shadows danced like distorted flames, swirling and contorting, fueled by a hunger that thrummed through the air. Every breath filled her lungs with icy dread. "Mommy!" Jake whimpered, tears glistening in his eyes as he glanced around, wary of the growing darkness. Emma clung to her side, eyes wide with an innocence that felt increasingly fragile. "Stay close. Don't let go," Sarah gasped, her voice strained but steady. The tightness in her chest continued to build a dark promise of what awaited them. What legacy was she inheriting? With each passing second, something sinister unfurled in her mind, like a shadow seeking to fill every crevice of her being. The laughter echoed, hollow and chilling, as if it belonged to the very walls that surrounded them. Was it possible that the darkness sought not just her, but her very soul? Then the laughter warped into a perverse chant. "Join us, embrace what was meant to be." Suddenly, she felt an immense weight pushing against her chest, dragging her deeper into a spiraling abyss. The floor quaked, splinters flying from the wood as if it, too, was alive and trying to wrench free from the darkness. "No!" she shouted, ripping herself from the grip of despair. She could not let go. Not now, not when her children needed her most. The memories of her family, their faces smiling, filled her mind, a beacon against the overwhelming tide. "Focus, Sarah." A thought broke through the chaos, the whispered words of her mother, long gone. "Love is your shield. Stand in its light." A flicker ignited deep within her, forcing light through the cracks of the encroaching shadows. She concentrated on that warmth, a heartbeat of love that sparked as she held her children close. "We are stronger together," she shouted, her voice breaking through the shadows, daring the entity to come closer. The shadows hissed, recoiling like snakes burned by the sun. "Defiance will not save you. You think love can protect you from the truth? What truth?" she demanded, stepping forward, emboldened by the bond she shared with Emma and Jake. Their hands were warm and solid, a tether grounding her in the storm. "Brookhaven has always belonged to us, your blood, your choices, your sacrifices." The shadows writhed in a frenzy, casting skeletal figures along the walls. Faces twisted in agony emerged, each fragment a life claimed by the town's insatiable greed. Was she meant to bear their burden too? Then Emma's fingers twitched, breaking the tension as she looked up, her voice soft yet unwavering. "Mommy, show them who we are." It was as if a door opened within Sarah. The energy thrummed around them, reverberating. She remembered the stories of the town, the sacrifices made to keep the evil at bay. "You may think you own their souls," she shouted, the shadows teetering under her defiance. "But not while I stand. Together, we forge a new path, not bound by fear." The darkness exploded back, howling in a cacophony of rage. The air crackled as waves of light blazed through the room, carving a path through the shrieking despair. The edges of the shadows splintered, as if unsure where to retreat, revealing glimpses of what lay beneath a twisted world where hope once flourished. Yet in that moment, a familiar face emerged from the abyss, wreathed in shadow yet undeniably belonging. A woman, her features a disturbing reflection of Sarah's own, smiled coldly, her eyes empty voids. "You cannot escape your heritage, child. You are trapped in the cycles of our making." The woman hissed, stretching out a hand. "Embrace it." As the figure lurched forward, time spun, the space around them warping. Sarah caught sight of her children, expressions of fear mingled with resolve. Would their bond be enough to break free from this suffocating grasp? Together, Sarah screamed, instinct driving her to the precipice of hope and despair. But the shadows surged, energies colliding, a chaotic maelstrom pulling her into the very darkness from which she fought to escape. The world blurred. Her Vision narrowed. Then everything went white, a piercing flash that obliterated the shadows for just a heartbeat. In that fleeting moment, hope clung like a harrowing dream, barely coherent. But that whisper haunted her still, echoing in her mind. Every choice has a price. Sarah, what price would she pay for the truth? What monsters awaited in the light she fought so hard to claim? As the white faded, and shadows began to weave back in, uncertainty twisted in her gut. Who had truly come back home? Sarah's breath came in shallow gasps as she blinked against the fading light, dazed but alive. The world swirled back into focus, but it was not the home she had fought to reclaim. Instead, she found herself standing in an expanse of blackened earth, the charred remnants of twisted trees reaching up like desperate fingers clawing at the thunderous sky. "Mommy?" Jake's voice trembled, echoing like a ghost in the eerie quiet. What is this place?" Sarah stumbled forward, the ground crunching beneath her feet. The shadows that had once surrounded them seemed to be swirling far in the distance, locked in a silent battle with the light. Her chest tightened. The air felt heavy, as if it were saturated with the sorrow of countless lost souls. Emma's hand gripped tightly around her waist, grounding her in this desolate landscape. "It feels sad, Mommy," she murmured, eyes wide with discomfort. "Stay close," Sarah urged, scanning the horizon for any sign of life or safety. All she could see were remnants of houses standing lifeless, their windows shattered and doors hanging askew. Each step took her deeper into a world that did not feel like her own. The laughter of those shadowy figures lingered in her ears, taunting her. With each twist and turn, Sarah felt a dark pulse beneath her feet, a heartbeat that synced with the rising tide of fear in her chest. "No more games," she cried into the stillness. "We're not afraid of you," silence answered, pregnant with tension. But it was quickly broken by a low, predatory growl that rumbled from somewhere unseen. "What was that?" Jake's eyes darted, wide with panic. "I don't know," Sarah whispered, bracing herself. A shadow flitted by, a quick flash of movement that disappeared behind a ruined building. She swallowed hard, dread coiling in her stomach. Then out of nowhere a figure emerged. A man, tall and gaunt, with skin the color of ash. His eyes burned with an unnatural light, hollow and fierce. "You awaken the lost," he croaked, voice like gravel. "The darkness hungers for more what?" Sarah stepped up, her courage flaring against the oppressive heat of fear. The righteous anger stirred in her throat. "You think I'm here to feed your depravity?" The man chuckled, a sound that set her teeth on edge. "Child, you carry their blood. They will always come for you, but also for what you choose to give." Emma pulled away from Sarah's grasp, bravely stepping forward. "We're not here to join you," she declared, though her voice shook. The man's grin was sharp, revealing teeth too long and too white. "Brave yet foolish. Your fight only calls the others." He gestured behind himself, and before Sarah could comprehend, shadows exploded in a flurry, taking the form of tortured spirits. Each one wore the expression of desperation and despair, rising like smoke from the ground, each whispering conflicts long buried. "Help us," they begged, their voices a chilling chorus. "Break the cycle, what do you want from us?" Sarah pleaded, holding onto her children as the shadows encroached further. The air crackled with a tension so thick it pressed against her skin. "Sacrifice," they shrieked, their combined voices a wailing that pierced through her very soul. "Accept your truth, or perish with those who came before." Fear tightened like a vice around Sarah's heart. She felt the weight of history pressing down on her, generations of shadows clawing to take hold. And despite her resolve, uncertainty seeped in. Was she strong enough to break the cycle, or would she fall like those before her? "No," she yelled defiantly, tears stinging her eyes. "We will not be your sacrifice." But the shadows did not listen. Their grasp transformed, tightening like a noose while the haunting chime of laughter echoed again, swirling around them like a tempest. And then the man spoke, his voice slithering through her thoughts. "Every choice has a price, Sarah. What will you pay?" In that moment, as shadows closed in, a blinding light burst forth around them. It wasn't warmth. It was sharp, electric with danger. What choice could possibly save them now? As the darkness surged forward, Sarah took a step back, the world around her teetering again on the edge of the unknown. Was this the breaking point, or the end of what she and her children had ever known? A new terror beckoned just beyond the veil. What lay in the light? The piercing light enveloped Sarah, casting her thoughts into chaos. It was blinding, and she instinctively shielded her eyes. "Hold on," she shouted, pulling her children closer, desperate to keep them safe from whatever lay ahead. Jake clung to her waistband, trembling, while Emma pressed her palms to her ears as the cacophony of whispers swelled, an all-consuming wave. "Make it stop," Emma cried, fighting against the pressure of unfurling shadows that reached for them. But as suddenly as it had come, the light dimmed, revealing a scene that twisted her stomach. They stood in the town square, the once vibrant hub now shrouded in decay. The remnants of a carnival lay sprawled out before them, the rusted rides creaking ominously in the wind, colorful banners dangling like forgotten dreams, and the sickly sweet smell of rotting popcorn filling the air. "What is this place?" Jake whispered, frozen in fear. It's a graveyard for joy," Sarah muttered, dread prickling her skin. It all felt wrong. A carnival turned into a nightmare. Shadows danced at the edges of her vision, inviting her to remember the laughter that once filled this space. From the skeletal Ferris wheel, a voice beckoned. "Come play," it crooned, high-pitched and eerily cheerful. "We have so many games." That voice shattered Sarah's resolve. She stepped towards the Ferris wheel, driven by something primal in her gut. "No," she yelled back at it. "There are no games here. You're all just shadows." But laughter erupted from the shadows, a sickening, hollow sound that vibrated through the earth beneath her. "We thrive on despair," they sang in a twisted harmony. "Join us, and you'll never have to be afraid again." "Sarah," Emma's grip tightened. "I want to go home." Her heart raced as she swung around, searching for a way out. But the carnival had transformed into a labyrinth of fear. Each path was obscured by creeping fog, the scent of decay growing stronger with each passing moment. She turned back to Jake and Emma, panic swelling in her chest. "We need to find the way out. Now." They rushed down a narrow path that led into a maze of discarded toys, turning from stuffed animals missing their eyes to warped dollhouses whose doors swung open as if beckoning them into hidden horrors. Sarah's legs felt heavy, each step burdened by the weight of the shadows lurking behind every corner. "Mommy, look!" Jake pointed at a tattered clown doll lying forlornly on the ground. Its painted smile seemed to mock Sarah, whispering secrets of the past that settled like a fog around them. "We can't stay here," Sarah said, her voice unwavering despite her racing heart. "We have to keep moving." Suddenly, the world warped again, the path behind them disappearing into a void, swallowing the shadows. Sarah felt the ground shift beneath her feet. "What's happening?" she screamed, clutching her children. The laughter echoed again, rising to a fever pitch. "Each choice draws you deeper," it teased. "Each step draws you in." As uncertainty gripped her, shimmering tendrils of light flickered along the edges of her vision. It seemed to pull her toward a figure standing isolated against the chaos, a face framed by shimmering curls, gazing with familiar intensity, a woman dressed in white, with an aura of both familiarity and dread. "Sarah," the figure called, voice hollow yet urgent. "Who are you?" Sarah shouted, pushing through the fear. The woman held out her hands, the light around her pulsating. "To escape, to save them, you must decide. Save one or save all. What will you choose?" The shadows surged, swirling faster, suffocating her with their presence. "What do I do?" Sarah cried out, torn between the light and the shadow's dark pull. As the carnival fell deeper into chaos, the laughter morphed into a haunting symphony, enveloping them completely. And against that overwhelming sound, Sarah's pulse beat in her ears, time running out. With the choice hovering on the edge of her mind, she glanced between her children and the light, the figure's eyes begging her to act. But could she choose? Would her decision save them or seal their fate? Just ahead, darkness writhed beckoningly in the corners of her vision, a home she never wanted but may be forced to return to. What truth would she uncover in the choice she was forced to make? The fog thickened around them, swallowing the remnants of the carnival. The laughter twisted into a malevolent chorus, wrapping around Sarah like a noose. She could barely breathe. The shadows moved in sync with her, a pulse vibrating through the air, filling her head with echoes of fear. "Mommy, I can't see," Jake cried, his voice piercing through the chaos. "Stay close," Sarah shouted, fear fueling her. She felt the warmth of her children pressed against her side, a fragile lifeline in the suffocating darkness. But shadows were not just obscuring the light. They were closing in, crowding the edges of her vision, whispering her name, taunting her with promises of safety and acceptance. Choose, the shadows cooed, their voices wrapping around her thoughts like vine. One life or many? What kind of choice was this? Her heart raced as she dashed forward, the cement cobblestones shifting beneath her feet, throbbing with uncertainty. The figure in white remained at a distance, shimmering like a beacon. But each glimpse sent a shudder up her spine. There was something unsettling in her gaze. Hope, or sheer desperation. It didn't matter. Sarah had to cling to her connection with her children. "Follow me, Mommy." Emma tugged at her hand, her voice quivering. "We can find a way out together, right?" Sarah's voice found strength as they pressed forward. She had no time for hesitation. But every turn they took in this decaying labyrinth seemed to bring them back to the same place, the haunted Ferris wheel. Its skeletal frame a gaping maw that invited them to submit. "Welcome back," boomed the disembodied voice, mockingly cheerful. "Let us play a game. A simple choice." Jake's grip slackened. Fear etched across his face. "I don't like games, Mommy, me neither, bud." Frantically, Sarah scanned the area, searching for an escape. The laughter echoed again, swelling into a sinister melody that intertwined with the shadows. Panic clawed at her throat. Splintered memories danced through her mind, the happiness they'd once known. The family gatherings, their laughter echoing in sunny backyards. Would she abandon those memories for the fleeting safety the shadows promised? "Mommy!" Emma shrieked, pointing ahead. "Look!" Sarah looked, her heart dropping. A carousel loomed before them, its painted horses frozen mid-gallop. The ground around it was littered with forgotten toys, each one as twisted as the carnival itself. The presence of the past weighed heavily on her. There, amidst the debris, was a barely recognizable teddy bear, once a cherished friend, now just a shell. "Do you see? It's all lost," the shadows hissed. "But you can save just one. Tell us who." "Stop!" Sarah screamed, clutching her children to her chest. "You want to take them. You can't." Then the woman in white stepped closer, light flickering around her like a fragile glow. "You hold the power. Who will you save, Sarah? One soul for the rest or none at all?" Dark whispers teased her, pulling at her heartstrings. Each breath felt heavier, laden with despair. What kind of mother was she if she couldn't protect them? With aching desperation, she closed her eyes, fighting against the urge to break, searching for the answer within the turmoil. And then a scream broke through the shadows, raw and piercing. It wasn't coming from her children. It was distant but intimate, reverberating through the ghostly carnival. It sent a chill down her spine, awakening something deeply buried inside her. "Follow that sound," she commanded, knowing they had no choice. "Mommy!" Jake cried, his voice quaking. "What if we get lost?" "We can't worry about that," she insisted, pulling them harder into a sprint. But with every hurried step, new shadows emerged, their numbers multiplying, grotesque shapes looming just at the edge of her sight. They raced toward the sound of the scream, the chaos behind them swirling into an unbearable cacophony. But what would they find? Was it help or a trap? Time was slipping away, the carnival tightening its hold, and the next choice awaited just around the corner. What nightmare lurked behind the chaos? Could they withstand the truth it held? As they rounded the carousel, a shadow separated from the rest, stepping into the dim light. A figure from Sarah's past, but was it friend or foe? And just like that, the darkness shifted, the laughter evaporating into a spine-chilling silence. Who had come to claim them now? What fate awaited on the edge of their instinct? There was only one certainty left. They were far from safe. The figure stepped forward, revealing a face that twisted Sarah's heart. It was her sister, Mandy. Once a vibrant part of her life, now she looked ghostly, wisps of shadow clinging to her edges, her eyes hollow and sunken. Mandy! Sarah's voice trembled, caught between relief and horror. What happened to you? Sarah! Mandy slurred, her voice a whisper just above a ghostly murmur. You shouldn't have come here. The shadows, they feed on despair. They want you to choose. Choose? Sarah's pulse quickened. The weight of the carnival pressed down on her, its sinister design and the crushing fog suffocating all hope. Please, Mandy begged, reaching toward them, fingers trembling. You have to run. They're planning something sinister. They don't just want souls. They want to take over the living before this night ends. Jake clutched Sarah's leg, eyes wide. Emma hid behind her, barely peeking out, terror painted on their young faces. Mandy, we can't stay, Sarah shouted, her heart racing as tendrils of shadow began to snake toward them, hungry and dripping malice. What do we do? Trust your heart, choose wisely, Mandy whispered, her voice fading, as the shadows seemed to reach for her too. Sarah's breath hitched. No, this can't be happening. Not again. A thunderous crack rang out, breaking the stillness as the Ferris wheel creaked ominously. It felt alive, pulsating, as if feeding off their dread. Run! Sarah shouted, jerking her children into motion as deeper shadows coalesced, their whispers growing louder, more urgent. We can't let it take us. Move! With every step, the ground shuddered beneath them, like the carnival itself was alive and aware, hungry for their fear. The mist thickened, pulling at her clothes, trying to drag her back, to hold her there as the carnival loomed, an ugly monument to lost joy. They darted past twisted carnival games and malfunctioning lights flickering erratically, illuminating horrific visions of past revelers. Shadowy figures frozen in agitation and terror, as if they had been caught in endless despair. Mommy, I'm scared, Jake cried, his small hands struggling to keep up. Just a little farther, she urged, willing herself to find a way out. But she could almost feel the weight of the decisions ahead pressing down on her like a lead weight. Choose or be chosen. As they reached a dead end, the shadows grew denser, circling them like vultures, softly chanting, one life. Or many a cacophony of voices crescendoed around her, echoes of laughter and cries mingling as the mists thickened and swirled. Glancing back, her eyes latched onto the figure of Mandy, struggling against the shadow tendrils, trying in vain to break free. No, Sarah wanted to scream. To save her you saved family first. Didn't you? Choose, echoed the shadows, pinning them with an invisible weight as they loomed closer. The choice hung in the air, heavy and cursed, twisting into a noxious cloud of despair. Do you value the past or the future? A smooth voice taunted from within the shadows. The laughter returned, richer and crueler, a mockery of the innocent joy that once filled her life. Mommy, Emma cried, her small hands reaching out. But all Sarah could do was stare, paralyzed with fear and the choking fog of choice, her mind racing through every possibility of salvation. Then the ground beneath them trembled violently, a shuddering roar of machinery coming to life. The Ferris wheel loomed over them, now swinging back and forth, its cars creaking. And then, a voice that chilled her to the bone whispered in her ear, choose or lose them both. Sarah's heart dropped. The reality burned. What if the shadows weren't mere illusions? What if they could take her children right now, right in front of her? What had she done to deserve such torment? Then she saw it, a flicker of hope through the thickening mists. A hidden path, perhaps. An exit. Follow me, she shouted, pulling her children as they dashed toward the unknown. But something loomed behind, shadows clawing for them, reaching as a cacophony of maddening laughter erupted, a dreadful welcome, beckoning her to surrender. As they sprinted through the thinning mist, what awaited them ahead was uncertain, and the question remained. Would they escape, or would the darkness reap its consequences tonight? The terrifying laughter echoed behind them, almost beckoning them back as the carnival continued to pulse, relentless in its pursuit. Would they emerge unharmed? Or would despair entangle them forevermore? The night was far from over, and the shadows were watching. The path twisted and turned, but uncertainty gnawed at Sarah's resolve. With every stride, the laughter pursued them, vibrant and cruel, a relentless taunt that sent shivers through her spine. The shadows felt alive, hungry for the warmth of her children, their cries echoing through the fog. "Keep going," she urged, but inside, fear clawed at her heart. What if the path led deeper into the trap? Just ahead, an archway loomed, wrought with grotesque carvings and twisted mirrors reflecting distorted images. The entrance seemed to breathe, exhaling a cold mist that wrapped around them like an embrace. "Let us go through," she yelled, guiding Jake and Emma forward, desperately ignoring the whispers of doubt that slithered into her mind. The moment they crossed the threshold, time seemed to shudder, not forward or backward but still, as if the carnival held its breath. Inside, the atmosphere changed. Colors twisted into a surreal palette of ghostly hues, and the air thickened. Each breath felt like inhaling shadows. The ground crunched beneath them, shifting as if they trod on crushed bones. "Mandy?" Sarah called out, but silence shrouded her voice, erased by the unnatural quiet. Shadows lingered close, watching, whispering, urging her to doubt. "We're okay, right?" Emma's voice quavered, the innocence in her tone cutting through Sarah like ice. "Of course we are, sweetheart." But Sarah felt the tightening in her chest. She turned to the kids, gripping their hands tighter, as if that could tether them to reality amidst the growing madness. Without warning, the mirrors around them shimmered, reflecting scenes of lost souls wandering in misery. Faces she recognized, a mixture of familiar smiles twisted into anguished expressions. Friends, relatives lost to despair, their eyes pleading even as they were trapped somewhere between worlds. "No, they can't have you," she shouted, desperation bleeding into her voice. "Not you too." But the shadows didn't flinch. Instead, they swelled, enveloping the mirrors, blurring the boundaries between what was real and what was haunted. "Mommy!" Jake's voice wobbled, pulling Sarah back to the present. She took a breath, steadying herself. "Look." Emma pointed toward a dimly lit path appearing within the archway. It flickered like a heartbeat. "Can we go that way?" "Yes," Sarah shouted, urgency boiling in her veins. "Run." As they dashed toward the light, the shadows surged, reaching like desperate hands to snag their feet. The cacophonous laughter crescendoed behind them, the walls reverberating with chilling delight. They stumbled forward, the light growing brighter, yet the pull of the darkness felt tangible, sticking to their backs like wet wool. "Faster," she urged, panic clawing where hope had started to bloom. Suddenly, the ground beneath them rocked violently, and the laughter transformed into a symphony of screams. The Ferris wheel outside creaked, threatening to topple, as if it were the very foundation of the haunted fairground. Shadows wrote themselves across the walls, forming grotesque shapes, dancing to the rhythm of chaos. Just as they reached the flickering exit, a shadow lunged, its tendrils lashing out, wrapping around Sarah's ankle, wrenching her back. "Mom!" "No!" Jake screamed, his face pale as he tugged on her leg, fighting against the pull. Sarah could feel the shadows pulling at her soul. In her mind, the words rang clear as ice. Choose or lose. But what was there to choose from? "Let them go," she cried, desperation clawing at her throat. "Take me instead." In a flash, a vision flickered in her mind, the dark, twisted face of the carnivalist puppeteer, an ancient figure whose smile was the void. She could not comprehend it, yet the gravity of its hunger felt real. The desperation drove her to the brink, an ultimatum hanging in the thickening air. "Mom!" Emma pulled at her, their eyes locking momentarily, fear mingled with determination. With one last desperate tug, she pulled away from the shadows wrapping around her, grabbing her children with renewed strength. They stumbled into the light fully, and fell, the back of her mind echoing, They hunger for choices even when one holds no options. They found themselves in a clearing, the carnival's laughter fading. But they knew it was not over. The shadows were not far behind, whispering secrets, plotting their return. What awaited them in this unknown was still a mystery, but at that moment, a single thought raced through Sarah's mind. Would they find safety, or was the carnival merely leading them to the next test of survival? In the distance, shadows stirred anew, and the laughter returned a shrill, delighted chorus. The chase was far from over. How could they find an escape when the enemy could shift form in the blink of an eye? She gripped her children tightly, her breath ragged, fear coiling tighter around her heart. The carnival wanted something from them. But what, and how much would they have to suffer to learn the truth? The thick fog of despair lifted slightly as Sarah led Emma and Jake through the clearing, but shadows still loomed outside the fringe of light. A chill raced down Sarah's spine, and for a moment, she thought they were safe. But safety in Brookhaven had been a mirage, an illusion that constantly slipped through her fingers. "Mommy, what if they come after us?" Jake whispered, his small voice trembling. "We won't let that happen," Sarah said, forcing confidence into her tone even as her heart raced. "We need to keep moving. There has to be a way out." With shaky breaths, they moved further into the clearing, each step feeling both heavier and lighter at the same time. They pushed through weeds and thorny bushes that seemed to reach out like fingers, trying to hold them back. Just as they thought they were getting somewhere, the distant laughter echoed again, sending shivers down her spine. "Can you hear them?" Emma turned her head, wide-eyed. "Don't listen. It's just tricks," Sarah answered firmly, though she felt her resolve slip again. The laughter wrapped around her mind, teasing glimpses of joy twisted into horrors. It was like they were calling her name, beckoning her back. Suddenly, a flash of light erupted from the center of the clearing. Not the familiar flickering warmth of safety, but an electric blaze illuminating the darkness around them. Panic surged through her veins, and when the light subsided, a shimmering figure of Mandy appeared once more. "Mandy?" Sarah gasped, hope igniting but fear clawing at its edges. "Is it really you?" "Sarah, listen." Mandy's voice wavered, and her features began to flicker like a broken film reel. "You can stop this. You have to choose." Sarah felt dread pooling in her stomach. "Choose again?" she whispered, thinking of her sister's earlier warning. What kind of choice was this? Had they not faced enough? "Your children can be freed, but you risk losing something precious," Mandy said, urgency rising in her tone. "You cannot let the shadows claim them. You are stronger than you know." "What do I have to give up?" Sarah asked, clutching her kids as they pressed closer, their small warmth providing a flicker of comfort against the terrifying cold. "At a price, of course." Mandy's expression darkened, and Sarah could see the shadows curling around her. "You know this town, this darkness, its secrets, they live in you, too. You're part of its legacy." "Enough!" The shadows began to hiss like snakes, chaos swirling around Mandy, urging Sarah to turn away from her sister. "You won't take her." The laughter of the shadows framed Mandy's form, reverberating throughout the clearing. "One heartbeat or two. What will it be?" they taunted. "Mommy!" Jake tugged on her arm. "What do we do?" In that moment, Sarah felt the fabric of her strength wavering. It was clear. The shadows wanted her to falter. They wished to ensnare her in their web of despair. But despite the cold dread settling in her chest, a flicker of hope sparked within her, the love for her children igniting a fierce determination. "Mandy, I love you. But I won't let the shadows take my kids," Sarah shouted, the shadows recoiling as if stung. With that declaration, a radiant warmth filled her heart, a wave of energy that pulsed within her, bridging the gap between life and the haunting legacy that defined her town. Where fear once reigned, love surged radiant and raw. "Run!" she screamed at her children, even as shadows lunged forward, angered by the outburst of light. "Trust me. Go." Jake froze in confusion, but Emma stood her ground. "No, we stay together." Suddenly, the clearing erupted in blinding light, plunging deep into the shadows. The cacophony of laughter shattered, reverberating off the walls of despair surrounding them. The dark figures hissed and roared, flailing against the light as the shadows consumed Mandy entirely. "Save yourselves," she cried, her voice shrinking as the darkness engulfed her. "No." Sarah reached back, instinctively wanting to save her sister, but the pull of her children was stronger. She gathered them tightly, the warmth wrapping around them like armor against the evil that threatened. Every ounce of her being focused on that love, the bond of a mother, fierce and unbreakable. "We will break this cycle," she shouted. Together, it was the only truth that mattered. As they ran deeper into the searing brightness, the shadows clawed at them, but the pulse of light surged, pushing the darkness back. The carnival trembled, its painted facades cracking like glass as the shadows shrieked in despair. Suddenly, they burst through a threshold into a sunny park where laughter of life filled the air, a vivid contrast to the horror they had just fled. The colors burned bright, and their feet landed on familiar grass. They stopped, breathless, sunlight pouring down like warm honey. The shadows lingered at the edge of the park, swirling faithfully, their haunting laughter fading into the distance, but forever a part of the town's lore. Did we escape?" Emma whispered, looking from the bright sky to the shadows now lurking beyond. "We did," Sarah breathed in relief, kneeling to wrap her arms around her children, pulling them close. Despite the horror, love triumphed within her, even if it came with the reminiscence of sorrow. "They are free," Sarah said softly, feeling the lingering void of what could have been. "But we'll carry their legacy forward. It's up to us to remember and break the silence." As sunlight bathed them tenderly, she felt a weight lift, the essence of hope igniting within her heart. There would be healing, even if it meant standing against the remnants of what had come before. With newfound strength and unity, Sarah knew they could reclaim their story, rewrite the fate of Brookhaven, and face whatever lingering shadows remained. No more fear, no more silence. Their truth would outshine even the darkest night. And as they walked away, hand in hand, the whispers receded, swallowed by the daylight that cut through the fog, the dawn of a new beginning. But Sarah also knew she would not forget. The shadows might have faded for now, but she was ready to fight against whatever darkness dared to return. Every heartbeat promised defiance, determination, and the profound bond of family. Brookhaven would mourn, but also heal, and she would make sure the sunlight always returned. Now, if you loved this story and want to be part of this journey, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel. Don't wait even one more second. Smash that like button now to help us reach even more souls who deserve these tales. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, your emotions, your theories about the ending. Your voice matters. And please instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support fuels the fire of these stories, so let's keep the light shining together.